Hello, Canada. Welcome back to another edition of the Canadian Citizen Journal. I'm your host, Elias Tagay. Well, we're going to kind of have a lot to go through here today. Boy, I tell you, Canada's not looking good on the global space stage, especially its fight for climate change. We're getting flushed down the toilet, and proof that our whole Liberal NDP green policy is nothing more than a farce, which I've proven in previous episodes, especially when I broke that two-part series on what is Mark Carney, exposing the climate hypocrisy of what he is. We're going to break apart Daniel Smith's presser today, exposing the Liberals that it's just lipstick on a pig, nothing's changed, lies, deceit. Literally, people, this is a joke, don't fall for their crap. Make sure you like, share, and subscribe. Get the word out there. Let's break the stranglehold that the legacy propaganda arm of the government has on Canada. Let's take off with Daniel Smith, and we will go from there.
All right. Well, thanks, everybody. Before I begin, I do just want to comment on an event that happened yesterday as it relates to my meeting with Prime Minister Mark Carney and the comments of his new Environment Minister, Terry Duguid. Yesterday, in my discussions with the Prime Minister, I made it clear that Alberta will no longer tolerate an emissions cap on oil and gas, which absolutely works like a production cap that scares away billions of investment and thousands of jobs, makes us more dependent on the United States, and has been found by Ottawa's own Parliamentary Budget Office to be greatly destructive to the Canadian economy. He both told me in the meeting and then later in his press conference with the media that same day that he wasn't in favor of hard caps like that. He said he was interested in results and getting projects like pipelines in the ground, and that's good because you can't fill new pipelines and cap oil production at the same time. So the Prime Minister's words sounded kind of nice yesterday until I looked at my phone right after the meeting with him and found out that his new Environment Minister had just told media on the other side of the country that the federal Liberals would be keeping the emissions cap in place. And this has been the same story for the last 10 years. Liberals come to Albertans, Alberta, they smile for the cameras, they tell everyone how much they're going to work with Alberta and support the energy sector. Then they go home and proceed to do everything in their power to roadblock and scare away investment from the energy sector. And now they're doing it when Canadians are literally demanding that we build new pipelines and production to become more independent from the United States. So we're just asking the question of the Prime Minister, is he prepared to lift this destructive and unconstitutional production cap or not? Albertans and Canadians do want the answer before they go to the polls and not after. In fact, we'd like to have the answer today. And I hope that we know whether or not it's the Prime Minister's message or the Environment Minister's message. I know there are many members of the media who wanted me to address that off the top, so I wanted to do that. Now, today. And
boom, which we've already kind of knew. Especially if you know what's going on and you don't watch mainstream, you realize that Carney's Trudeau 2.0. This is pretty much a perfect example. Open net, he shoots, he misses. Way to go, Carney. You did it again. Loser. Let's speed ahead a little wee bit further in this press conference.
Hi, everyone. These news conferences always turn into another topic, not the one you're talking about. So I just want to say something really personal. I wouldn't be here, most likely, to annoy the Premier if it wasn't for Alberta Cancer Care and the treatment I received at the Tom Baker Cancer Centre. So I just want to say, on behalf of myself and my family and a whole bunch of other patients I'm sure, thank you for what you do. Premier,
a survivor.
Mark Carney in the
right on.
Yesterday, mentioning anything about lifting caps or any of that, because they came out sounding like you, for heaven's sake, maybe you're just over-excited. But do you have any confidence that what he said, clearly said to the media afterwards, has any meaning at all as we head into this election campaign? And is there anything specific that he indicated in the meeting?
Thanks for your kind comments, Don. I think Brenda was really gratified to hear that you had a good experience. I was willing to keep an open mind, really. I put 9 issues on the table that have depressed oil and gas investment. The Prime Minister seemed to indicate he wanted to find a way to fast track the construction of new corridors and new pipelines. And then he went and did a press conference where he said that he was not in favor of a hard cap, which is something that he said to me as well in the meeting. But then his environment minister said the exact opposite. And what I said to him was, I will judge you based on whether you say the same thing in Alberta as you do when you go to British Columbia and when you go to Quebec. And so that's what we're trying to get some clarity on, is what is the direction of this new administration. If it's really a new administration, then I put the 9 key pressure points that we need to see addressed. And unfortunately, we're still seeing that same kind of saying one thing here versus another thing from a minister. We just want answers. So I hope he'll give some clarity today.
Yes, I have a sort of two-part follow-up, Premier. He would have to do an enormous amount of legislative work to change all this. There's a cap, there's the Impact Assessment Act, there's laws that would have to literally be changed. There's Bill C-59, which means we can't even talk about this stuff. All this stuff that we have to be changed. You think he really can retro, or should he win, a new Liberal caucus into a Green to basically ditch all that stuff? Because the way he was sounding yesterday, that would be what he'd have to do. That's number one. Number two, I just want to ask if there's any response from either you or Minister LaGrange about the former AHS CEO's latest court filing.
So there's no better person to really hear about Mark Carney than Liz Truss. Listen carefully.
I think it is extraordinary that Mark Carney has become the Prime Minister of Canada. He did a terrible job in Britain of the governorship of the Bank of England. He created a lot of the problems that blew up on my watch and that I got blamed for were actually created by him. He backed Labour in the election and Rachel Reeves's policies, which are leading the country to bankruptcy. So why on earth the Liberal Party of Canada has selected this man, I have no idea. And I think it is illegitimate that this guy has never been elected as a member of Parliament in Canada. I'm utterly puzzled, and the Canadians. I'm not going to tell the Canadians how to vote. Obviously, I want the Conservatives to be elected in Canada, but I think it's Justin Trudeau has pursued a lot of the same policies that Europe has been pursuing. And America is raced ahead of us. Back at the turn of the millennium, the average Brit was catching up with the average American in terms of income per head.
Wow.
We are now $34,000 a year behind. We are poorer than Mississippi, which is the poorest American state.
And guess what? So is Canada. Our richest province is poorer than Texas and Mississippi. Welcome to your post-national state.
The same is true of France and Germany, and to some extent of Canada, because they pursued all of these woke policies. High taxes, high spending, not using their natural resources. And Justin Trudeau was the architect of that. And of course, Mark Carney has been the advocate of these policies. So I don't know what is going on in Canada, but in the same way as I think people in Britain need to wake up to what the real threat to our country is, I think they need to wake up in Canada.
Boom. She nailed it. It's just the truth. Just the truth. Let's hear a little bit more from Daniel Smith.
Taking my question. So my first one is just kind of talking about the 9 pressure points that you mentioned. So when you're talking about a constitutional crisis and things like that, I'm just wondering how that sets you up for success with Alberta federal relations. And with that in mind, can there still be a Team Canada approach from that starting point?
I think that there is a consensus emerging with the threat of the completely unjustifiable tariffs that have been levied by the United States. What I've seen emerge is a real willingness on the part of all of the premiers to find a way to remove interprovincial trade barriers, identify economic corridors, and talk about restarting some of the projects that died in the last 10 years because of the policies that have been in place. The Bill C-69, the No More Pipelines bill, did the effect. It makes it difficult for any linear project to get approved. The tanker ban on the West Coast makes it impossible to build a pipeline to British Columbia. The inability of companies to even talk about their emissions reduction without potentially facing criminal charges. I mean, those things are kind of a baseline that you have to get rid of if you're going to demonstrate that there's a true change of action. It's not difficult. Even the emissions cap, which would be very easy to say we're not going to do that. The Ottawa's own parliamentary budget officer confirmed what two other reports had said, that it would depress investment, it would reduce the amount of GDP, and it would cause job loss and would shut in production. So these are not unreasonable things to be asking for, since there seems to have been a change in approach across the entire country, so that we can start acting like a country again, be an energy superpower in our own right, find new markets. The only way to do that is to build linear infrastructure east, north, and west. And so we just are looking for some clarity on whether there's a genuine change of heart in the federal Liberal cabinet and among the leadership to do those things. And so at the moment, we're getting a mixed message. But yes, we can continue on with an approach. We're meeting as a First Minister's group today to talk about the impact of not only the export tariffs, but also the import tariffs. I've got businesses in my riding that have been impacted both ways, with export tariffs as well as with import tariffs. And so we need to get an understanding of what the compensation looks like to defray some of the pain that our businesses are suffering through. And we also need to develop a strategy about what happens April 2nd if indeed reciprocal tariffs are applied worldwide, as it seems the president is suggesting, on 5 different products. Do we then dial down our import tariffs, which are only hurting Canadians, or do we? What is the action that we need to take? So I think those are a couple of things that I'll be putting on the table. Just we need to have a strategy for what happens April 2nd, as it looks like we'll be very likely in an election at that point.
Now, Taiwan has just signed an LNG deal with the United States. That was another country who was begging Canada for LNG that Trudeau said there was no business case for. IQ of 86. That's what you get when you put a really bad part-time drama teacher with a low IQ in the driver's seat. I did a little bit of math. Of the 7 contracts that have been signed so far, and there's like 14 on that are on the table, but 7 signed contracts. Just 3 of them will cut global emissions by 2.2%. That's 0.75% more than Canada's total greenhouse emissions. So for all you greeners out there, we were warning you about this before Trudeau even got elected. And then we were screaming it out, trying to get the media to talk about it. Crickets. You guys, all of those greeners out there, so all my viewers, you make sure you tell them, like, share, and subscribe, by the way, how you are burning the planet by your policies. Once the rest of these countries secure and actually sign how much LNG they're going to be buying, just a guesstimation is going to be like 7 to 7.5% lower GHG emissions because of these deals. Think about that. So spread the news to all those greeners. Slap them with the reality that you're the reason the world is going to burn, and we were supposed to be dead 7 years ago. Let's see. I've been through 6 climate catastrophes in my lifetime. We were supposed to freeze to death, drown to death, burn to death, then freeze to death. Then the ozone was going to kill us. Then back to freezing to death, then flooding to death, and now we're going to cook to death again. And not a single one has come true, but we've been taxed on every one of them, and we still haven't changed the weather. Welcome to reality. Now, this was the first actual poll I came across. And get ready to have your mind blown. 1 in 4 Albertans. Yes, 1 in 4 Albertans. I exit under Mark Carney's win. The numbers don't lie, people. The anger is real, and for a growing number of people, Canada is no longer the obvious answer. And like I said before, I do not blame Alberta and Saskatchewan for feeling this way and wanting to take Canada out of Canada. What we have become is a joke. The climate hypocrisy alone should wake up Canada and just decimate all of these green pushers, like especially the Green Party, Elizabeth May. Would you at least bring one scientist, the NDP, the Liberals, would you at least bring one real scientist up in front of the media and on a stage with maybe another opponent? How come they don't debate their climate science? Because it's not real, people. It has been debunked already. It's been debunked for the moment they started saying it. It's been debunked. It is all bullcrap. Horsepucky. All of it. Horsepucky. Now, I love this. I talked about this on a couple social media posts that I did. Now, tell me. Look at these hardworking Albertans. Look how happy they are to see Mark Carney. Right? Okay. Well, they're stepping forward, and one is really trying to get his voice heard. And here it is. John Brake. I'm the guy in the black hard hat. I didn't want to be there. I vowed not to shake his hand. I told the organizers that I wouldn't. Props. They're using the workers as props. Hello, Canada. Wake up. Make sure you like, share, and subscribe and get the word out. None of these workers, it's just like the steel plant in Ontario. None of them want any part of this Liberal government. I mean, no worker in their right mind, no tax-paying citizen in their right mind would vote for the Liberal Party or the NDP and forget the Greens. Not happening. Reality check, people. You are being gaslit. Mainstream media and the props of the propaganda of the party are all lying to you. All lying to you. Let's move on to a little bit further. Let's hear it again, Daniel.
Are you committing to a fair deal panel? Like what exactly is on the table here? Getting back to this question.
I have put the 9 things on the table that I think the next federal government, whoever it may be, need to address in order for us to do what aspirationally it seems everybody wants to do, which is to get pipelines built to the BC coast, more LNG export facilities built there, pipelines built to our northern coast, pipelines built to Churchill, pipelines built in Energy East. The only way to do that is to be able to send a message to the producers of the products that will go through it, that there's an enthusiasm to make it easy for them to go through an approval process. And right now, the 9 things that are on here send the opposite message. They send a keep it in the ground message. And so I'm just looking for some alignment with what is publicly stated in the middle of an election campaign in order to win votes versus what the action needs to be in order to be able to make good on the commitments that are being made. So we just need some clarity from the Prime Minister, because he seems to be having all different statements being made by his ministers, and so that's what we're looking for.
I'm just asking what Alberta's or else is here.
I guess we'll see what happens with the election. I mean, there's a few steps that have to be taken. I put these issues on the table. There has to be an election, which we gather is going to be called on Sunday. Once that is over, in my view, clock starts ticking. And within 6 months, we would expect to see some meaningful movement on these issues. And if not, then I'll do a fair deal panel and listen to what it is that Albertans want to do in consequence.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Matt.
Hey, Tim Brooks, CTV. Same question for both of you, but I'd like separate answers here. Can you just walk everyone through what the procurement process was like when it came to the children's pain?
Okay, we're going to move on. So, again, thank you, Canada. Thank you, Canada. Thank you, Brookfield. Thank you for all the corruption. Thank you for pushing the agenda and taking over Canadian companies and squashing the freedom and the powerhouse that Canada could have been. Gotta love this one. Carney capping oil because climate change. India with 1 billion tons of coal for energy. G. Gishan Radhe. Historic milestone. India has crossed a monumental 1 billion tons of coal production. With cutting-edge technology and efficient methods, we've not only increased production but also ensured sustainable and responsible mining. This achievement will fuel our increasing power demands, drive economic growth, and ensure a brighter future for every Indian. Under the visionary leadership of Honorable PM Shri Narendra Modi, India is on the path to becoming a global energy leader. With coal. Canada, wake up. Our carbon capture alone was one of the greatest feats in technology in the last 20 years. Our government, and Carney especially with Brookfield, has tried to squash that and stop it because they didn't want any coal to be produced. They didn't want any coal to be used. Why? Because they are investing in third world country coal, buying huge coal mines, buying the transit systems, the shipping systems, the ports. I expose it all in previous episodes. Go check it out. I am a little wee independent man, and I have dropped so many bombshells that a lot of my stuff is being used by other bigger media outlets, but not mainstream. Anybody that the government pays, you won't see the truth. If they take a government check, they work for the government. They don't give a shit about you. They don't care about you. Let's move on. So, Liberal Party drops Ottawa MP Chandra Arya as election candidate. Arya was also disqualified as a candidate in the recent Liberal leadership race, a decision which the party also refused to publicly explain. Now, this is really interesting because the mainstream isn't saying anything, nor is the Liberal Party, of course. And I know why. Why, Alias? Well, I've studied propaganda for over 2 decades. This is what they do. They saw what happened after they kicked Ruby Dalla out and kept all of her fundraising money, which all of her constituents that paid want it back. They want it back. And they vowed not to vote Liberal. Ruby Dalla is still out there. She's been down to Washington. She's been trying to fight for Canada. She's a real Liberal, people. She's a real Liberal. She's from before Trudeau. She was a Liberal MP before Trudeau. Yes, she's had a couple little controversies. All of that's been sorted right out. And from what I could tell, there was kind of a misrepresentation on both. I don't know who was right or wrong. Personally, I don't care right now. I don't care. Because the little wee scandal that it was is a crumb compared to the scandals of any single one of these sitting Liberal MPs today. This whole party is corrupt. She came out of the woodwork to run as a leader in order to fix the party and get it back to where it has been for the 100 and some years before the Liberal corrupt takeover, the Trudeau, Calistini, China, Brookfield global elite takeover. The Liberal Party of today is not the Liberal Party. They are not. They are a full-fledged fascist regime. Period. Cut, dry, take it to the presses. Reality. So they're not talking about it because they lost a pile of voters, and it hurt their party very badly because it showed the reality of what they are. Bigots, homophobes, racists, climate zealots, fascists, greedy warmongers. I mean, the list goes on. And then the fact of, if you want any evidence, look at what Carney just did. He goes to Alberta and he says one thing, and his minister's on the other side of the country saying something different. Nothing has changed. They're all the same until every single one of these Liberal MPs loses their seat and is forced to never run again in politics, and the Liberal Party can rebuild itself to what it was. They're all the same. They're all the same. One more. Dougie, the waist to skin Liberal minion. Let's take a listen. So Doug Ford says the media is lying about his relationship with Pierre Poilievre.
You had a call on Monday with the Conservative leader, Pierre Poilievre. How would you qualify the tone of that discussion, and why are you not endorsing him in the upcoming election?
Well, first of all, it was the first time I ever spoke to him. And I guess what was reported is not accurate at all. He didn't ask me for help, and he didn't, so I don't know where they came up with that story. I just, I want to see how each...
Now, kudos that he actually corrected that, because mainstream loves to lie, especially if they can push a slanderous lie on the Conservatives, because the Conservatives are going to cut their funding off and make them become real journalists, or their whole platforms will go bankrupt. Now, to me and a whole pile of other independents, this is a no-brainer. This is a no-brainer. Keep listening.
Leader is going to protect Ontario. Are they going to get the Ring of Fire moving forward? Are they going to get out of the way and make sure that we get into the critical minerals? You know, times have changed now. We're in an economic war.
His liberalism just came out.
The largest country in the world, and we have to get to those critical minerals as quickly as possible, and it can't take 20 years to get those critical minerals out of the ground. I always say Alberta's oil is our critical minerals, and that's how we're going to fund everything. And the world wants them. We have them, and we have to get them refined and out to the open market, no matter if it's chromite or chromelin or nickel or gold or platinum. It's the largest deposit of critical minerals in the entire world, and we just keep duplicating assessments. So hopefully the federal government will come out and say, yeah, we'll get out of the way, one assessment, one window, and let's move forward.
Now, do you believe a word that this piece of crap says? I mean, seriously. He's out having luncheons with Chrystia Freeland and all these other Liberal ministers. He's pretty much smiling. He's pretty much selling and promoting the Liberal Party, who has crushed Canada with all of these legislative... Oh my God, there are so many rules and regulations. Hundreds of companies have left. They don't want no part of Canada. And like I said on yesterday's episode, there were a pile of them that were thinking about coming back. This is about 3 months before Trump won the American election, and the Liberals started to... I know for a fact most of the polls are lies, blatant lies. It's called the bandwagon effect. Propaganda 101, Section 3. This is what they do. You start telling and showing fictitious pictures of how all of your neighbors and everybody around you thinks that this is the way to go. And the person who doesn't really know or study or isn't really paying attention goes, oh, well, they're all my friends. You know, these are the people. These are Canadians. They must be right. And they jump on the bandwagon. This is propaganda. That's what this guy is. He's a shill. He is a minion, a liberal loser minion. Everything he just said, oh, well, you know, whoever is going to, you know, deregulate and whoever is going to open up this area, they're the ones who decimated it and put all the rules and regulations on and had all of these companies leave and shut down in his province. The Liberal Party. The only difference is the pig they pushed out. They removed the one and they brought another pig in, but they slapped a bunch of lipstick on him and said, here's Carney, and it's an all-new party. They're all the same MPs. They all have the same agenda. Nothing has changed. Ontario, you voted this guy in. You reap what you sow. Now, fortunately, conservatives don't really give a shit. They're going to open Canada wide open. They're going to deregulate, and they're going to start getting Canada closer to where we should have been decades ago. Now, are they perfect? No. Has there ever been a perfect government? No. Do I have full faith 100% that the Conservatives are like the best way to go? No. No. I watched them all stand up when they brought in a Galatian soldier, an Nazi, into the House of Commons, and they all clapped like seals fresh out of the ice that ate a fish. Those who don't know the past have no right to lead us into the future. That being said, most of their policies are the way to go. They're actually what the Liberal Party used to be, and Conservatives have always kind of agreed on, which is, I believe, correct. And for generations, they've at least kind of held that together. Scandals on both, all the rest of the bullcrap. Poilievre is a new leader. I've yet to catch him in a lie. I watched him grow his career, and I've always liked him. He's really good, and he's, like me, he's very good with math. So it's easy for him to call out bullshit when you see it. Numbers don't lie. So I have faith in that aspect. And I know that he's the only real party right now that we can use to decimate these three socialist and fascist governments and start exposing the corruption and cleaning up the government, which he has said. So he's got my vote. Vote however you want. All I can tell you is those who forget the past are condemned to repeat it. And you've seen 10 years of fascism. So hopefully you guys will like, share, and subscribe and get the word out and just educate Canada on what's really going on. And let's pop this media bubble, break that propaganda arm, and educate Canada to the reality of what's going on. Because you'd be amazed at how many people are eager to vote in a federal election who have never read a bill, who've never watched Parliament, and really don't even know anything about federal politics. They're either bandwagoners or the worst, this is the worst, card holders. That's like right out of Germany. Ooh, that scares the living bejesus out of me. Well, you guys, I'm going to call that an episode. I hope you enjoyed it. Hope I opened up the world and Canada to you and showed you shit that the mainstream media won't show you. Until next time, you've been watching the Canadian Citizen Journal. I'm your host, Alias Tagai.